Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours. Craig here, and welcome to In Real Time, where we're having real conversations about, leading people, organization, and change. And today we're talking about how and when to communicate about finances.
Ooh, finances are a hot topic.
Oh, you are cheesy. We were asked if we would cover this topic, and of course we'd like to. And we don't know everything, but we do know some things, and we want to be able to share this with you today. I wish all of that was real. That is amazing. That is really cool. Hey, I'm joined by two co-hosts today, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Jennifer Alessio, and I serve as the children's pastor here at Heights Church.
Mm-hmm. And you're on a management team as well?
Am.
I always have to offer that. You should just say, yeah, I'm on the management team.
Yes, I'm on the management team.
There it is. Sweet.
My name's Tim. I oversee the online church, teaching pastor, and part of the management team.
Nice. Very nice. And I have it on good authority that Pastor Jennifer is now a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. Am I right?
Well, I don't know about that because I think my dad would be a little upset.
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't watch the podcast, you can be a Dallas Cowboys
True.
fan.
I don't think he will.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna hold that out there loosely and hope that you will be. Okay. So today we're talking about finances. How and when do we communicate to our church, our organization, about finances? This is a great topic, and there is a lot to this topic. So obviously we're not able to cover everything, but there are some really important pieces of this that I think we've learned, and we just wanted to be able to share. The first one that I want to say right off the bat is what our goal should be in regards to finances is no surprises. When we're talking about communicating to our church, our people, our leaders, anybody in our organization about finances, there really should not be any surprises. And by that, I mean that they should have a good general idea as you're moving along about how things are going. And so we'll start to unpack that a little bit more, but that's going to be important. And I think that one thing also needs to be said, which is why this is such a difficult topic very often. And I would say mainly for senior leads. I'm not sure about how staff would feel about this, but for senior leads, if the finances are not awesome, then we can, I'm going to say we, because I'm tempted to believe this as well, is that it is somehow a reflection of my leadership. And I'm going to say that, yes, that can be true, but it is not necessarily true. And very often it isn't true. And if you're a healthy leader, you're not leading the finances by yourself. You have a board, you have financial committees, you have key leaders, you have key staff that are managing these things with you. And because of that, you're healthy. And you're making good, wise stewardship decisions. And so the reflection of the finances, maybe they're not up and to the right as we would want them to be, but that doesn't mean that you haven't led well. And so I think that's really important because we can feel really insecure about what the finances might say about us. And I think we need to just say that up front, get that elephant out of the room, or at least acknowledge that we think like this. So I don't know. Does staff ever feel like that? Does that have any tendency with that?
Not really with finances, but I would say definitely attendance numbers would be a biggie.
Feel that? Yeah. Well, that should probably be a whole nother podcast.
I think it should be.
We're going to be that. All right. So metrics for success. That might be that podcast.
Right.
All right. So today, as we're talking about how and when do we communicate about finances to the church, first thing that we're looking at is, Pastor Tim, why don't you kick us off here? What's the first thing we're looking at?
Identifying who is your audience.
Yeah.
Who are you communicating these things to? And there's a number of board, staff, key leaders, church. And then you go on from, is that your core community leaders, congregation, crowd, all those things. So identifying who your core audience is or who
Yeah.
your audience is.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm communicating about the finances pretty regularly. And I do need to know which group am I really talking to? And we're talking about how and when.
Right.
Each group is a little different. So obviously the board knows everything. They see
Right.
the budgets. We go over it every single month. And specifically their role is the financial oversight of the church, completely 100% accountable to them. Staff can know those things, but very often doesn't, just because they're busy doing other things. And then key leaders in the church can know those things, but often don't. They're doing other things. But then if you're communicating to the overall church, let's say about updates at the end of a year, well, you do need to think about, am I communicating to the core? Am I communicating to the overall community of the church, the congregation, which would be the next larger group? Or is this the overall crowd of a weekend service? Now, we communicate to all of these groups of people, but we do need to think about, what does each one of these groups really need to hear? What do they want to hear? And so I want to answer the questions that they're asking. So it is an important piece. It's not like you just say everything to the same group of people because they're all asking different questions.
Right.
So that's important. Case in point, we're having a campaign update gathering after church this weekend.
On Sunday.
On Sunday. And when we do that, that's a smaller group of people. These are stakeholders in our church that they've been giving, they have pledged throughout this campaign, and so they're at this. They're going to be asking different questions than somebody who's just part of the crowd that's been attending for say 3 months and they're on the weekends.
Yeah.
They're really not all that interested in the financial questions most of the time. So again, that just kind of helps us understand who's your audience. What is the goal when we're communicating about finances?
It's a big one.
Building trust, definitely.
Building trust.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really key because we often think, I'm just communicating information. Yes, but
not
you're really
just,
building
right.
trust.
That's
what you're doing.
trust.
And that doesn't mean that if you're communicating, we're in the red, that doesn't mean you're lacking trust. In fact, the fact that you were willing to say that often builds trust.
It does.
Yeah. And so I think that's an important piece. You are building trust. That is your goal. It's to show accountability, to be accountable, which again builds trust. And there's a phrase I like to use: there's nothing to hide from cynical eyes. There are a lot of cynical eyes out there, and there's plenty of bad stories about organizations, churches specifically, that might have mishandled funds. And I think that when people arrive at your church, some of them arrive cynical. We have no idea what their past experiences have been. And so I want to alleviate those fears and concerns. And one of the best ways to do that is to know that my goal in communicating finances is to build trust. And that does mean that we talk about it.
That's right.
If you never talk about it, people probably wonder why you're not talking about this.
Well, I also know, like recently, you shared a story where a person who had been attending our church just for a short while, didn't they thank you
Oh, yeah.
for talking about the finances and where we were and having that open transparency?
Yes.
They actually were appreciative, and we gained their trust in that moment because they knew that this is not normal. And they felt that was something like, I like Heights Church.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it's a story that I've had happen to me probably a good 4 times in this last 12 months.
Wow.
Somebody coming to me that's visiting or new to the church. And that is the story. It's like, I did not experience that at my previous churches. And I really appreciate that you're willing to be transparent and talk to us about it. We never heard a word. And you're doing that, and you're letting us know where we're at. So
That's great.
That's really helpful. Okay. And with that, I love telling people about our layers of accountability. I think this is something that we should herald. It only builds trust. We submit our budgets to our denomination every year because our loan is with them, so they get to get eyes on. We have an annual review and or audit every single year that we present to our business meeting That's a layer of accountability that's done by an outside firm. And also at our business meeting, we provide our budgets. So this is important, and we want to communicate these things because they build trust.
Yeah.
And we do get questions.
We do.
And our accountant answers them. And if they need further information, they can call him at any time.
Yes.
And he is happy to explain exactly what we're doing, what's spent, where it's spent.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's great. I always laugh. It's a joke, but it's true. If you want to know how much we spend on toilet paper, I don't care. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
We can tell you. And you know what? When we
There's
do,
a line item.
it just builds trust.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not misusing any of it.
Right.
So what do we have to fear?
Right.
We're being good stewards, and we know it. And we're not making these decisions in a vacuum. The board knows. Our staff knows. We arrived at these decisions on purpose, and we think with good stewardship eyes. So we're happy to be able to share this information. Important. Okay, here is something that I think is really key and has served us well over the years. We need to decide what we're not going to share. Now, that has to be unpacked for sure. So, Pastor Tim, can you unpack that? What do we mean by that?
Well, one, what we don't share is individual salaries.
Yeah.
And that's just to protect the individual. It's to protect things on a lot of levels. So we will share the overall, this is the amount we do for overall salaries. This is what we spend on salaries, but we won't break it down per individual for a lot of different reasons. And I think, like I said, it protects the individual, employee. It protects you as a leader. And because, people get weird about that stuff.
They do. And I don't know many people who want to share their salaries, whether they're church work or whatever work they do.
Correct. Absolutely.
So why would we do it?
And that would just become a distraction if that kind of information got out. But this is it. And then they can do the math. This is the percentage of our overall budget.
Yeah.
They can do the math. That's great.
But
you do have to decide. And maybe for some churches, they decide there are other things they won't share. But for us, for the most part, that's the one thing we won't. We won't share because we want everyone to know everything else. You want to know how much, you always say, Jennifer spends on goldfish?
Zero right now.
It's zero right now, right?
Goldfish crackers for the kids.
Right.
No, it's true.
2019 would have been quite a bit more.
Yeah, quite a bit more.
Yeah. And what's nice is that I think the smaller your list of what you won't share brings you to that one point where you talked about where you're challenging people not to protect. Don't protect that information. Be transparent about those other things. So the smaller that list of we won't share builds more trust.
Yeah.
Because you're willing to share about toilet paper.
Agreed. It's true. And when we go to the business meetings and we say, hey, what questions do you have? I don't stand up there and fear it.
No.
I stand up there and say, I'll answer this question. I'll stay here all day long. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I know that whatever decisions we've made financially, we've been good stewards of it. I have nothing.
We can explain it.
Yes. I can explain it. So I do think that's important. We don't share individual salaries. I can defend that decision. And I think it's an important decision. It's the right decision. One thing, though, that I do think is important about this is you mentioned it, deciding what is not going to be shared. I really want to challenge our senior leaders and those who are in the know. I understand, which I have done this for years. You guys know this because we've had this open conversation in our management team about me wanting to protect our staff. And by that, I mean, Pastor Cheryl, myself, the board, we all knew how tight things were. But I did not want you guys coming to work every day wondering, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to continue to make it? How are we going to do it? Are we meeting budgets? And I wanted you to just focus on ministry and let me carry that burden for you, along with the board, of course. I wasn't doing that by myself. And I thought I was protecting you. And I do think that there's an element of that, yes. And I realize that not every staff is the same as ours, but we have a deep trust with each other and good, strong relationships. And so there came a point when we were needing to make some financial decisions that I know didn't make sense unless you knew how tight things were. And especially when we went into the COVID years, this really came out. And the time came for me to just say, just do it and trust me. Or I could share more information and you guys wanted more information. Not to beat me up over it, but again, those are decisions we can defend. I didn't make them in a vacuum by myself. And when we were able to share it, you guys really appreciated that.
We
Can
did.
you talk about that, Jennifer? Because I know you were part of those conversations a couple years ago.
Well, I think for me, I'm a numbers person. So I was looking at offering every week. I know I had permission to ask Mark,
Yeah.
what was the offering? And I knew we weren't meeting budget.
Yeah.
And so I was concerned. And I wondered, not that I don't trust you, I do trust you, but I wondered, is he dealing with reality?
Yeah. You're right.
And I know we laugh about
Does he
that.
see this? Yeah.
But I thought,
Yeah.
I
a real
because you're
question.
very positive, and you have deep faith in the Lord, you have deep faith in us, and so I thought, is he realizing this?
Yeah.
And then once you said, "Hey, this is where we're at. We do need to deal with the fact that we may have to let staff go if
Yeah.
things don't turn around."
Yeah.
And for me, that made me feel very secure.
So it actually had the opposite
It
effect.
had the
of what
opposite effect
one would
because
think.
for me, it was important to me that you were dealing with reality.
Yeah.
I thought we talk about the elephant in the room. We can talk about what's happening and we can build a strategy.
Yeah.
And that helped me feel good. I thought, hey, I trust the Lord. I trust Pastor Craig. I trust everybody on this team. I know God has great plans for our church.
Yeah.
He is going to work in this plan. But for me, I needed to know that you knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know that unless we communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I protect you and keep that information from you, because I think I'm burdening you, then I look like I don't know what I'm doing, or either I look like I'm too optimistic.
I think
Yeah.
it was more optimistic.
Yeah.
I don't want you to hear that I don't think you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh no, I
do.
didn't hear that. I didn't
Okay.
hear that. Yeah. No, I know my optimism though is out there for a lot of people to see, and it's a good quality, but at the same time, it can also be blinders. And so I'm aware that I do have to let people in on what I'm thinking. Otherwise, they can think I don't really see the danger or the risk. And so it is important. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So decide what's not able to be shared. And I think that's a really good thing to think about. And obviously protecting your church body and what you share, don't share. That's also something, because it's not like we just talk about every little problem or pitfall with our overall church, but there are some times that people will, I know people in the pandemic that, and of course we're moving past this, but even now today, budgets are not what they were for most churches. They're still way under where they were. And people are making drastic cuts, cutting salaries, but they never spoke to their church before they cut salaries or cut people. They just cut people. And they never gave their chance for the church to respond. They thought they were protecting them, but I think actually it might have, I'm not sure that that's what it actually achieved. And so it's important that we are open and transparent about these things that we can be. And there does come a point when people need to know we're not making it, and we need you to jump in and be a part so that when we make these decisions that we all are getting to this place. So that if we have to actually cut staff, which is what we talked to our church about, if we actually have to cut staff, I want you to know that there was a chance we didn't 4 months ago, rather than just, well, we're just going to cut staff because I never wanted to tell you we were having stewardship issues. I don't think that's a good way to be. So
I agree.
So that was a decision that we made. So let's talk about how we communicate about finances. We got a couple bullet points here. Pastor Tim,
Yeah.
what do we got written down there? How do we do it?
Well, we do it purposefully.
Yes.
Like we have a strategy and we go after it with intent and strategy and make sure it happens. We help people understand what they want to know. Like you talked about earlier when off camera, we were talking about just budgets, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to give every little line item, but hey, this is what they want to know. Are we in the red or in the black? Or here's some bottom line numbers. And so you got to be able to communicate with intention. What do you want to know? And then what do they need to know? And you figure out, well, they need to know that as well. And that could be, hey, we're behind. Like you said, no surprises. So what do they need to know? People, they know where you're at, it gives them the opportunity to respond, which really we know because giving is something that is tied to our heart. It's like, give the people an opportunity for a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, they
right.
they love this church. They believe in the ministry and the vision God's given Heights Church. So
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah. So we want to do it purposefully. And so what do they want to know? And history tells me that.
Right.
So I'm going to answer a few questions I know they're all going to ask. And then I'm just going to open it up to questions, which we want to make sure we always allow that at, say, business meetings. No, we do not do this on the weekends. We don't just say offering time, ask whatever you want.
Right.
But we do pull aside people who we know are givers, and we invite them to a gathering, and we say, ask whatever question you want.
Yeah.
We're about to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing, and it only builds trust. So we do it purposefully. We also share clearly. Accounting is a language that accountants understand and very few other people do.
Agreed.
And so it has to be interpreted. And I don't mean misinterpreted. I mean, okay, this is what the accountant says, and this is what it actually interprets to mean. We're in the black.
Right. Yeah.
Or, hey, these numbers are really huge, but we're actually in the red. And I need to interpret this for you rather than just give you raw numbers and expect you to have figured it out. That's the purpose of the business meeting. It's the purpose of these gatherings. People appreciate it. Whatever the real news is, tell them that, because our goal is to build trust. Right. Yes, we're conveying information, but we're building trust as we do it. One thing that I've realized is that the big numbers are misleading. People see an offering of, say, $25,000 on a weekend, and they think that is a massive amount. We're doing great. Well, actually, our weekly average, we need to average, say, $38,000, $40,000 a week. So that's not a great number.
Right.
We need to be able to help people understand and discern the numbers as they are, because these are massive budgets, way bigger than many of them are used to dealing with.
Yeah. Because $25,000 is a life-changing number for some.
It is. Yeah. For most people, it is.
But if it's half of what you need to operate, it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not what you think it is.
Right, exactly. So that's an important thing, that when you have an opportunity at, say, business meetings or your gatherings of giving leaders, you need to be able to share those, what those big numbers really mean.
Yeah.
And then you want to share them accurately. No funny numbers, not playing around with your numbers. You're telling what's really going on. And a phrase that was given to me years ago is that you should be able to defend any of your financial decisions on the front page of the newspaper. And if you can't do that, you need to question whether or not it's a good
Great
decision.
advice.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, because it just might wind up on the front page of the newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Integrity matters.
Integrity matters. Yeah, yeah. Okay, next question. When? When do we do it? So we talked about how. When do you actually communicate these things? This is important. So Pastor Jennifer, why don't you run through a couple of these for us?
So when, as often as it takes to create transparency, which
Yeah.
really is just as often as necessary with the group of people that you're meeting with. So here at Heights, we do it in our weekly planner.
Yeah.
We do it in a monthly email to our Unite stakeholders.
Yeah, hold on. So weekly planner, meaning we post the last week's giving and the total for the month.
And the total for the
And
month.
we tell them what the goal for the month is.
We do.
So
So
they
it's
can
very,
see where we're at.
it's very clear right there with our message notes
Yeah.
every Sunday.
Yep, yep.
We also do it in our monthly email to stakeholders, which are our Unite givers
Yeah, these are people who pledged.
who have pledged to our
Yep,
campaign.
Yep.
Quarterly giving statements, which I love when I receive mine.
Yeah, yeah.
I just think it's wonderful to have that.
It really is, yeah.
And at our annual business meeting. And that's where it's actually printed in total. You can see all the line items, everything what was given, everything that was spent.
Yeah.
And then Mark is available to explain, which we always get great questions during that time.
Yeah. And oddly enough, even though we have all that information, those business meetings average somewhere around 42 minutes for the entire meeting.
Yeah.
Meaning people don't have a lot of questions.
But there's a
Us,
few,
There's a few, but
Yeah.
not a lot.
but not a lot.
And we're transparent.
We build trust.
We build trust. Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. Okay. What else? What else?
We have a
do do?
special offering. We're very clear about what was given and who it was given to. And then when anyone asks anybody could call Mark at any time or ask any of us on staff any question, and we will get that answered for them.
Right. Yeah, we don't mind.
We don't mind. We're happy to
thing.
answer. It's not anything that we're ever worried about.
Right.
Because we all trust each other and we know that it was spent well.
Yeah.
And with integrity.
We have permission to share it all.
We do.
Except for
Salaries.
individual salaries.
Which we all get.
There we go.
Nobody wants that out there.
That's right.
And then lastly, we do talk about budgets when it's going to hit staffing.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that people understand, like you mentioned earlier, hey, we don't want to tell you when we're so deep in the red, we have to let go a pastor.
Right.
We're going to let you know far in advance how things are trending and get your buy-in.
Right.
So that you can make a difference in our ministry, because we know that our people don't want to let any of us go.
Right.
They love us.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So I love that. So we talked about how, we've talked about when, and I think when we're talking about communicating strategies, we need to just say it as plainly as can be. You need a plan.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is your plan? What is your financial strategy? And we arrive at this through assessment, for sure. And when I talk about strategy that needs to be communicated to your church, a way that we could talk about this, really, I think the pandemic created this kind of clarity for me. And I'll say that I've gotten really good I think better, I'll say it that way, at communicating our strategy through COVID and the difficulties of the last 3 years, because we did really come to a place where we had to create a strategy. I didn't honestly know I knew I needed one before. So I learned that I had to create a social media strategy in the middle of the pandemic, and I created a financial strategy because I didn't know I needed one beforehand. I just thought, okay, here's what we got. Here's what we took in. Here's what we spent. We're all good. Yay. It's accountability. But now we knew it. We needed a strategy. And by that, we mean we don't have as much coming in as we used to. But rather than cutting budgets, or rather cutting salaries, we cut budgets. And Tim, can you tell us why we did that?
Well, one of our
Ministry budgets.
Yeah, and if you've been watching these episodes, we've went through the game plan.
Yeah.
That's our DNA as a church, and one of those things is that we believe that people are our greatest resource.
That's right.
And we know we have some great facilities here, but a facility never shared the gospel.
Yeah.
It never brought restoration. Right? A building and resources never introduced Jesus to anybody.
Yeah.
And so people do that. And just this past weekend, I was teaching a membership class, and I got to explain, and people were thinking about their own journey of faith. And not one of them could say it was a building or lights and sirens in the worship center. It was someone telling them about Jesus. And so we can have these buildings, but if we don't have a leader to lead ministry, we'd have empty buildings.
Yeah.
And we could have really cool stuff that's doing nothing.
Right.
And so we feel we get far better return by investing in people, one, paid staff, but also our volunteers. We make sure they're trained and equipped and empowered.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've decided, right?
Right.
As Heights Church, that we're gonna it's about the staff, because we can get more kingdom work done that way.
Right.
Great facilities. I'm not saying those are wrong, right? We've never said it. Those are incredible tools that God has blessed us with, and we use those tools. We leverage those tools so that we can tell people about Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
It's not the message. It's a vehicle.
I think another way to say that too, those are great examples. Another one would be, we know that we could buy pizza every week and spend a lot of money on that and provide free pizza every Wednesday night for our students.
Yeah.
But if there's no leader
That's right.
to receive those students and help them and care for them and to share Jesus with them, all that free pizza is all for nothing. I'd rather have the leader there and no pizza than pizza and no leader.
Yeah.
And that really is the decision we actually had to come to.
Yeah.
Because we could not afford both.
Nope.
So we had to say, we're banking on the leader.
Yeah.
And that's our strategy. And we literally got up in front of the church and told them that. We're banking on this. So there's things that are going to be going away. We don't have a lot of money to spend on these other things, but our leaders are going to be in place because that's who we need, which means we have to get really creative about how we do ministry. but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the right priority. But that's a strategy we literally created, and then we had to communicate. We're banking on leaders, not ministry budgets.
And I'm not saying that's for every church to do, but for us,
Yeah.
and just as an encouragement
Exactly.
to leaders who may be listening to this podcast, when I was teaching the membership class, and we got to this point, it was all positive feedback. They were just heads nodding, absolutely, with big smiles, and they got it.
Yeah.
They got it.
So good.
Yeah, even people who were part of our online campus came for the membership class. I forgot to tell you that, and they were saying, yeah, because if there was no person or a team, like a production team, to film and program and put the service online for us, they like, I don't, they literally, that's where would we be?
Yeah.
So they get it. It's people over programs.
They do.
Not that programs aren't important.
Yeah.
But we're going to put our money on people.
And I specifically know a few people who have given some very large donations to us, very sizable, and they all commented, "We trust you and we believe in leaders first." This is
so
going
awesome.
because we believe in leaders first.
That's
great job. Here you go, because we want to be a help. So it actually inspired them to help us because of that strategy. But we communicated it. So important. So when we think about how and when to communicate about finances, we need to think about who's the audience. What's your goal? Building trust.
Yep.
Decide what's not able to be shared and just be clear about it. So everybody knows and they have permission to share everything else. How are you going to do it? Purposefully, clearly, accurately. When are you going to be able to share this? And as often as it takes to create transparency. And what's your plan? What's your strategy? Do you know it? Can you put it into words? Does your board know it? Does your staff know it? Put it into words. How would you describe it? All right. So our challenge is get clarity with the right people. It starts with you, your board, your top staff. Get clarity and communicate your strategy. Anything else we need to add to this?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
really good.
Hey, great topic today. Thank you so much. I know this is
for
going to be
having
really
us.
Yeah,
helpful
thank you.
to our leaders out there. And I just appreciate you guys being able to share and lean in on this one as we had a real conversation about leading people, organization, and change. And please hit like and subscribe and the bell button so you will not miss one episode as it drops. And we will see you next time in real time.